I get asked a lot at Quest Baits about tackling the French water for the first time, turning up a lake that you don't know anything about. Do you pile the bait in straight away? Do you give them a little bit? How do I do it myself? I've got to admit, certainly most of the French venues these days, they're under far more pressure than all the English venues. The days of turning up at a lake, piling 25 kilo bait in and catching straight away is just well gone. Big beds of bait now on a lot of lakes do tend to spook the fish. What I tend to do these days, very much the first night, I'd refrain from putting much bait in at all. I generally have a rule about the amount of bait I can hold in my hand is about as much as I put on each rod the first night. That's certainly on catapult range type stuff. I'd much rather just put a little bit of bait out, hook bait amongst it, then sit and listen and watch. By the second day, you've normally got a pretty good idea where the fish are likely to be. I like the fish to show me where they want to be, where they're feeding naturally. I don't want to commit myself to a lot of bait in an area. The fish might not visit that. Once you've put 5 kilo bait in a spot, 10 kilo bait in a spot, you're very much committed to it then. You see fish close by, but you're thinking, oh, they'll be on the bait soon, they'll be on the bait soon. Do it in reverse, just put a little bit of bait out just to get yourself fishing the first night. Second day, if fish start showing on an area, you've got the area then, and slowly start building that spot up from there. That's how I tackle it myself. Since I've been doing this, catch rates in France have soared really. Also, you'll find on a lot of the commercial venues, everybody's turning up, everyone's starting fishing at the same time. Straight away the marker rods are out, the spod rods are out, the catapult's out, the lake's totally bombarded. If you're sat in a swim, out of the way of everybody, not disturbing the swim, I like to get the hook baits out very quick but then sit back. Let everybody scare the fish to you. They don't tolerate a lot of bait on the heads and leads crashing in all around them. And carp are wild creatures, they get out of the way of that. If you're sat in the quietest swim on the lake, the fish are going to end up in your swim. It's a very useful tip, that one. Like I say, the busier the water, the more that is true. Another thing I've done a lot of over the years, it seems such an obvious thing, but as a starter on a swim, which I don't know at all, rather than thrashing it to a foam with a marker, I might have a couple of casts just to see what's around. But if there's a very obvious feature in front of me, a very tall tree on the skyline or a lamppost or anything obvious, I like to try that fishing that mark at catapult range. Catapult 15mm baits as far as you can and fish to that. Regardless of what features are on the bottom, you'll generally find so many new anglers come into carp fishing. They read the books about casting to an obvious marker so you can recast at night and everything. And that same spot at catapult range you'll receive a lot of bait throughout the year, regardless if there's a bar there or anything else. Always a good starting point, that. And the fact that they get a lot of bait there, the fish revisit it time and time again. They might get caught from them a few times, but the amount of food that they're eating, it's always a good ploy. Following on from the baiting scenario I set up, once I start trickling a bit of bait in, once the fish show me where they are, I never do it on both areas or 3 areas. I like to start one area, quite heavy, sometimes put kilo baits out, sometimes a bit less, but slowly build one spot up. If that rod starts to produce quite a few fish, obviously you're safe then to start piling a bit more bait in on the other ones. If, however, the rod where I'm fishing just a handful of bait over keeps going, that's the method I'll keep employing. It's always a fine line trying to decide how they want it. Some lakes do want a lot of bait, other baits hardly want any at all. But just, you need to remember, once you've put the bait out there, you can't take it out again. So rather than messing all the rods up, in case I don't want big baits, just start off little and often. If the fish start to come, I like to experiment, just try them on a little bit more bait. More bait you can get them feeding on, the more confident they'll feed, and the more times they'll come back to the swim during the week. So trying to get them on the bait if you can, but it's not always the be-all and end-all method. Always be prepared to have a rod that I always have one which I refer to as a rover. If the fish shows somewhere else, it's the rod. I don't mind winding in, I'll wind it straight in, have a test cast near the fish. If another fish shows in another hour, I'll wind that rod in, have a go there as well. Obviously if I pick a fish up on that rod, it'll go back there and possibly try trickling a bit of bait, but just starting the process all over again. But until all the rods are producing, I'll always have one moving about. Quickest way to find a spot by far. Certainly a mistake turning up a lake with a preconceived idea where you want to fish, but I do a few things at home before I go fishing. Give me a rough idea where the fish are likely to be. Constantly keep a check on the weather. Always print out a Met check off the computer. This way it gives me an idea of wind directions when I get there, if the wind's going to alter during the trip, brommet pressure so I know how much bait to use. And particularly on the big waters, I don't always want to be doing a full lap of the water. If I get an idea the fish are likely to be on one bank, I can concentrate straight away there. But invaluable aids to me. Like I say, the Met check I always print out. Always carry a compass with me. Beauty of the compass, I might be on a venue for the first time, but I know from the Met check the day before that there could be a westerly wind, 12 miles an hour. When I turn up at the lake, I want to know straight away where west is. Or should I say where east is, where the wind's blowing onto. So all little things I do, like I say, it just gives you a clearer picture before you get to a lake. Another thing I do in the fishing diary, always kept fishing diaries. Mine tend to be quite detailed, it's something I've always done. I find them so useful for looking back on if I leave a water for a few years and go back. Always got details of where I've caught fish, distance I've been fishing out. Lots of bits and bobs in there, like I say, I constantly refer back to them. But as well as just being a diary, generally I stick a calendar in the back, but I also have aerial shots of the various waters that I fish. These are normally off Google or Local Live or whatever, just aerial photographs, and I draw lines on those showing north, south, east, west. So with the three things there, with the compass, the Met check and the map, it's pretty clear in your head where the fish are likely to be. Obviously you turn up at the lake, there might be a lot of pressure on one bank and the fish will move off. But if you're lucky there's nobody there, you can have a very clear picture before you're anywhere near the lake. Certainly a good guideline, a good starting point.